President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Republic of Paraguay, I congratulate Ambassador Peter Thomson on his election as president of this session. We wish him every success, and I remind him that he may count on the support of my delegation. We also wish to recognize Ambassador Morgan Sliketov, who contributed to keeping Agenda 2030 at the center of our deliberations, and who also, after 70 years, started a historic process of opening and transparency on the election of the next Secretary General, which has meant a landmark for our organization. I also wish to take this opportunity on behalf of President Horacio Cartes to recognize the Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, for his tireless work during these 10 years, as well as for his humanity and his commitment to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. We are certain that his legacy will live on and will serve as inspiration to whoever takes on this responsibility. On behalf of the people of Paraguay, our gratitude for his historic visit to Paraguay. Mr. President, we are living in an increasingly complex and interconnected world in which the international context is constantly evolving. Traditional armed conflicts have practically disappeared, but terrorism in its most cowardly form, an intolerant form, has achieved global scales characterized by the emergence of increasingly cruel and inhuman groups who despise human life and have no respect for rights and fundamental freedoms. The effects of climate change and pollution continue to worsen, and pandemics threaten our planet. These global challenges, which go beyond physical borders and from which no state can be immune, cannot be faced individually. It is essential to promote collective, comprehensive strategies with a sense of shared responsibility. Furthermore, we cannot lose sight of other priority challenges, such as eradicating poverty, reducing inequality, and ensuring a decent life for all individuals. Mr. President, we see with sadness and concern the situation endured by refugees and migrants in different parts of the world. The dimension of the refugee crisis should lead us to think not only of responses to their most urgent needs, but on the importance of resolving the root causes which have led them to flee their homes and to embark on perilous journeys in which they face frightening uncertainty. Today, given the new and complex scenarios, the purposes of the United Nations to ensure the solution to international problems of an economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian nature, and to promote respect for human rights, are not only still prevalent, but they are even more compelling. The organization requires to be reformed, to be updated, and to offer appropriate and effective responses. The General Assembly must be strengthened. It is the highest democratic expression of the peoples that are part of it. The sovereign equality of states is the cornerstone of its structure. It is the parliament of the world. We believe that this year we have taken an important step in strengthening its role and in increasing transparency in the process of selecting the next Secretary General. Given the public hearings with candidates, men and women alike. Paraguay would like a man or woman Secretary General who attach priority to preventive diplomacy and mediation, and who, as the main person responsible for the administration, will ensure that the United Nations system is an example of inclusion, promoting national diversity and gender balance in its civil service. Reform should also encompass the executive branch, the Security Council, the organ in charge of maintaining international peace and security. We need a more democratic representative council with more spaces for developing countries, a council which is transparent, inclusive, and accountable for its actions. I would like to mention that Paraguay aspires to be a member of this organ during 2028-2029. Mr. President, the Republic of Paraguay reaffirms its commitment to respect for international law and multilateralism. Unilateral action in international relations has only shown that it negatively affects the weakest countries. A fundamental pillar of peaceful and harmonious coexistence among states is the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. We advocate energy programs of this kind, developed with every precaution, limiting the deterioration which its production could cause in the environment. States that carry out these programs should do so on the basis of broad cross-border responsibility, following the best practices of international cooperation, of prevention of risk of damage, and with due diligence, appropriately responding to possible cross-border damages. All nations of the world are called upon to prevent threats to peace and to adopt appropriate measures to strengthen universal peace, especially with regard to disarmament, non-proliferation, and arms control. Collective and responsible action is necessary to address the various situations which today endanger the life and security of civilians and that affect the political stability of entire countries and regions. Paraguay reaffirms its willingness to continue contributing to the personnel of peacekeeping operations. Today, there are Paraguayan personnel deployed in 7 of them. The Republic of Paraguay strongly condemns terrorism and violent extremism in all its forms and manifestations, and stands in solidarity with the suffering caused to victims of terrorist acts and their families. Last month, our country suffered a criminal attack which killed Paraguayan military personnel in the performance of their duties. We are grateful for expressions of solidarity received from the international community, and we reaffirm our commitment to the struggle against terrorism in the framework of international law and with full respect for human rights and international humanitarian law. Our government, founded on the traditional relations of friendship and cooperation with the Republic of China, Taiwan, appeals for it to have a better presence in agencies and specialized organizations of the United Nations system. Mr. President, poverty and inequality are drivers of political instability. They degrade the social fabric and condemn the most vulnerable to a life of exclusion and want. Thus, the historic promise embodied in Agenda 2030 to eradicate poverty everywhere and, if possible, forever within 15 years. This is unprecedented in history. With this in mind, the government of my country is implementing inclusive development plans and programs for the progressive realization of the economic and social rights of our citizens, and in so doing improving their quality of life, which in turn will contribute to strengthening our democracy. Sustained economic growth of Paraguay in recent years and the implementation of its social protection strategies have made it possible for thousands of Paraguayan families to come out of extreme poverty. However, our challenge is not only to continue making progress in this sense, but to avoid those who emerged from poverty from going back to it. Our most iconic initiatives in social protection are conditional monetary transfers, school lunches, and pensions for the elderly. We also have specific programs to put an end to intergenerational transmission of poverty, such as the program Sembrando Oportunidades, Sowing Opportunities, which improve the access of families to health and education, where women who are heads of household are prioritized. In Paraguay, we strongly promote infrastructure, and we are taking measures to improve transparency and accountability in public institutions. Also, we encourage productive development by promoting investments with the understanding that the private sector plays an important role in creating opportunities toward full employment and decent work. Countries like ours, which greatly depend on natural resources, are more vulnerable to climate change, and therefore Paraguay, the Paris Agreement, is a priority. I would like to announce that the National Congress has approved the agreement, and in a few days we will deposit our relevant ratification. Mr. President, international trade is one of the pillars of sustainable development. However, landlocked developing countries have special needs and challenges in being full and effective members of the global economy and in receiving its benefits. The Republic of Paraguay urges developed countries to increase access to their markets of products from landlocked developing countries through their inclusion in systems of generalized preferences, trade financing programs of aids to trade, and by promoting their integration in global and regional value and production chains. The Republic of Paraguay is working toward the prompt implementation of the Bali Agreement on Trade Facilitation, which will no doubt result in its competitiveness on global markets. Mr. President, the youth are the most important human capital of a country, and Paraguay is one of the Latin American countries with the largest youth population. Convinced that we must prepare them for the challenge of contributing to a better and more just society, our government has undertaken a national graduate scholarship program for studies abroad, Carlos Antonio Lopez, which has benefited hundreds of youth. This year, we also launched the first call to specialized studies scholarships for teachers in all parts of the country. Mr. President, ever since the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the international community has seen great progress in international promotion and protection. One of the most significant steps has been the establishment of the Human Rights Council, which this year is celebrating its 10th anniversary. For Paraguay, a current member, it is essential to strengthen it and to give it the necessary tools to persevere in its mandate and to prevent any departures that may weaken it. We emphasize proudly that in our country we have developed the Simore mechanism, which makes it possible to verify transparently and openly compliance at the national level of international recommendations on human rights, and we have made this available to all states interested in replicating it in the context of their national reality. Paraguay commends the historic agreement on the bilateral and definitive ceasefire between the Republic of Colombia and the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, FARC, and congratulates all those who made this great event possible. The people of Paraguay extends to the brother people of Colombia, with whom we have historical and unflinching bonds of friendship, our genuine wishes that this new stage will be one of national reconciliation and unification, so that all together may face the challenges ahead to build a country in peace with social justice in which no one is excluded. Finally, Mr. President, We express our wish that in all conflicts, dialogue, political solutions in good faith, and peaceful means will be the only tools to achieve agreements which make possible a lasting and sustainable peace in the framework of international law. Thank you.